JBN, we keep you informed. Two 18-year-old females among 5 shot, hospitalized in St. Anne's Bay. 5 people are in hospital, nursing gunshot wounds, following an attack by unknown assailants in St. Anne's Bay on Saturday. According to reports, at about 1 a.m., police received reports from residents that several shots were heard in the St. Anne's Bay market area. A team of officers went to the area to investigate, and 5 people, including 2 18-year-old females, were found suffering from gunshot wounds. They were taken to the hospital where they are receiving treatment. The extent of the victims' injuries are not known. Detectives in St. Anne's Bay say they are still trying to establish a motive behind the attack. Taxi operator sentenced to prison for attempting to kill family by arson. A taxi operator was accused of attempting to kill himself and his family in a bid to avoid being arrested by the police 2 years ago. Has been sentenced to 15 years in prison for arson. Devon Fisher was sentenced on Thursday before the Home Circuit Court. Prosecutors reported that in 2017, the police went to Fisher's house in Bayshore Park, Arborview, to execute a warrant following allegations that he had robbed a group of foreign students in the St. Andrews Central Police Division while operating his taxi cab. During a standoff, it was reported that Fisher refused to cooperate with the police and instead threatened to set the house on fire and kill himself as well as his common-law wife and 4 children, aged 9 months to 16 years. He then set the house ablaze. Police personnel broke down the door, removed Fisher, and rescued his family. At the trial, Fisher denied the allegations and blamed the police for starting the fire in their bid to enter the house. During the sentencing hearing, it was revealed that he had 15 previous convictions, including 1 for murder. Convicted for killing a gang leader, 2 men who shot and killed the leader of the notorious One Order gang have been convicted of murder. Gerardo Grant and Omar Davis were found guilty in the Home Circuit Court after the jury in their murder trial deliberated for nearly 3 hours on Thursday. They were convicted for the February 2014 shooting death of David Wallace, also called Legion. The One Order gang is based in St. Catherine and dominates several areas in the parish. At the time of his death, Wallace was the gang leader for the community of Thompson Pen, according to evidence presented during the trial. A 3rd man who was also charged in connection with Wallace's death was killed before the trial started. Davis has been charged and is awaiting trial in connection with the slaying of his former co-accused. Prosecutors had evidence that on February 9, 2014, 3 men invaded premises in Thompson Pen where Wallace lived and shot him several times. Investigations led to the arrest of the 3 men who were friends with Wallace, according to evidence in the trial. St. Catherine man with 506 outstanding traffic tickets arrested. The crackdown by the police on motorists with scores of outstanding traffic tickets has caught up with a St. Catherine man who amassed over 500. The police say Trevor Samuel of Brown Lane in St. Catherine was arrested for accumulating 506 outstanding traffic tickets. 8 warrants had been issued for his arrest. The police say Samuel appeared before the Corporate Area Traffic Court on Friday and was fined $37,000 or 14 days in prison. He was offered bail in the sum of $100,000 and is scheduled to return to court on November 12. Members of the Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch remain relentless in their efforts to detect and prosecute every individual who breaches the Road Traffic Act, the police said in a statement. Earl Melhedo struck from roll of attorneys again. Prominent attorney at law Earl Melhedo has again been struck from the roll of attorneys at law entitled to practice in Jamaica. In a notice published on Thursday, the Disciplinary Committee of the General Legal Counsel, GLC, said action was taken against Melhedo effective June 19. Melhedo had been previously struck off in another matter in 2015. The committee said it made its decision to take action against Melhedo after hearing evidence in a complaint brought by Clarence Clark, where it found that the attorney was guilty of professional misconduct. It was reported that Melhedo was acting for Clark in a divorce settlement in which Clark was ordered by the court to pay $4.3 million to his wife and given a deadline to make the payment. Clark gave the $4.3 million to Melhedo for him to pay to his wife's attorney, but this was not done. After some time, Clark had to retain the services of another attorney and had to pay the $4.3 million again. Melhedo later admitted that he had received the money from Clark and agreed to repay it plus the interest and fees which Clark incurred. Melhedo repaid the $4.3 million over time, but failed to pay an additional $1.78 million, which Clark had to fork out because the money had not been paid to his wife's attorney in the first case. The disciplinary committee was of the view that it was obligated to act in the interest of the profession to ensure that the collective reputation of the profession is maintained and that the appropriate sanction for such a breach was a striking off order, said the GLC. The public is advised that Mr. Earl Melhedo is therefore not entitled to practice as an attorney at law in Jamaica, nor can he be employed in that capacity by any member of the public, added the GLC. It also reminded other attorneys that under Section 21 of the Legal Professional Act, they cannot employ or remunerate any of their colleagues who is disqualified from practicing as an attorney because their name has been struck from the roll. Melhedo had previously been found guilty of professional misconduct in October 2015 and is struck from the roll in relation to his failure to pay over between $1.56 million and $1.58 million, which he had collected on behalf of a client who was involved in a motor vehicle accident. Holness and Phillips to publicly renounce link between politics and gangs. Prime Minister Andrew Holness and leader of the opposition Dr. Peter Phillips have both agreed to publicly renounce any connection between politics and gang violence and are to work together in violence-affected communities. The Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, PSOJ, in a statement on Thursday, said the two political leaders also agreed to meet with residents in St. James, which remains under a state of public emergency. The agreement was made at an anti-crime summit, which was attended by representatives from the government, opposition, and the civil society groups. A working group was also appointed to develop a national crime strategy. PSOJ said the working group is to advance the development of a strategic process which is measurable and will produce an interim report by November 30, after which the full group will reconvene. The group, it said, has been mandated to examine existing reports and studies. The summit, which was facilitated by the private sector, emphasized that the work of the group would be data-driven and evidence-based and would benefit from expert advice. In addition to presentations from Holness and Phillips, the summit was also addressed by Minister of National Security Dr. Horace Chang and heard interventions from a group of representatives from civil society groups, PSOJ said. The summit, which was announced in Parliament on Tuesday, is a follow-up to an initial meeting last week Thursday between Holness and Phillips. Never give up. Former teen mom urges girls. Michelle Scarlett became pregnant the summer after her grade 9 year while she was attending Montego Bay High School in St. James. She was only 14 years old, and her father had thrown her out of the house. The Women's Center of Jamaica Foundation, WCJF, who would become her oasis during this crisis. Somebody told me that there was a center on Brandon Hill, and I live in Glendevon. It was really far from me, so I had to walk. But that's where I went for food for myself and for my child. Without it, I don't know what I would have done. My son's father was a teenager also. He was 16. And so he left school and started working, but barely had anything to feed him, me, and the baby, Scarlett said. Since its inception in 1978, the WCJF has assisted 46,989 adolescent mothers across its main centers and outreach stations. I went there until I had the baby, and then I went back to school. They try to keep up with the program that we used to do in high school. I don't really have anywhere to live, because when my father kicked me out, I was living with my son's father. Then I went to my grandmother, and she got sick, and my aunt said I couldn't stay there anymore. It was really tough, she said, adding that she often could not afford toiletries. Scarlett handed over responsibility for her son to an aunt who had family in Kingston in an effort to return to her father's house and go back to school, but he declined. The Women's Center would again come to her rescue when they found her a home. They know a lot of children get thrown out when they become pregnant, and so they'll walk around and search for people who want somebody to live with them. I went to live with this woman in Springfield, and she basically wanted someone to help her to clean her house and keep her company. I ended up going to Maldon Secondary, and that's where I finished high school. Her caregiver would not give her money, but provided meals and shelter. Scarlett's book, In Search of Self, A Message of Hope, tells the story of her early abandonment, the factors that led to her becoming pregnant, her journey through motherhood, and the lessons she learned. I made mistakes because of the low self-esteem I had. I turned to boys to ask them for money to buy things that I needed to go back to school, said Scarlett, now 44. The thing that stood out is that I never gave up. I always felt like I needed to go to school no matter what was happening. I was focused on graduating from high school. She set her eyes on the prize, and it was achieved as she graduated with 5 passes in the General Certificate of Education examinations. Scarlett had her second child when she was 26, and that too, she said, was unplanned. I decided that I had to leave the area and find myself. It was about searching for Michelle and loving Michelle, said a reflective Scarlett. She subsequently migrated to the United States with her kids and pursued her undergraduate degree. She is now 4 weeks away from completing her master's in healthcare administration. She said it was important for her to return to Jamaica in September to share her book with the young women who currently attend the Montego Bay Center so that they might be inspired by her message of hope. I've always wanted to give back because that place was really my safe haven. If it wasn't for them, I'd probably end up pregnant multiple times because I was living with this boy and a caregiver advised me not to stay there in that situation. Scarlett has reconciled with her father and believes that her life is a testament that teenage mothers do not have to be victims of negative stereotypes. Having paved the way for her career in social work, she has so far fostered 5 boys and a girl. The children that come into my house are troubled children. Most of the times, they feel rejected or their parents are on drugs. It's strenuous. But when I help them and I see the change, it's really fulfilling, the foster mother explained. On her September visit to the foundation, she made a donation to the Advancing Secondary Tertiary Remedial Education for Adolescent Mothers program. The fund provides bursaries to adolescent mothers who are reintegrated into the public education system, as well as tuition for students who have matriculated to tertiary institutions. JBN, we keep you informed. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, leave us a comment, and click the notification bell to receive our daily news items.